Welcome to the Red Hook Town Board meeting of March 12th, 2019. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. This is the first meeting of the month. Steve, for the folks at home, if you'd be kind enough to pan over to the screen here so they can take a look at the agenda items we will be discussing this evening and figure out how long they want to stick with us. Okay, very good. We start the first meeting of the month with the supervisor's report. Okay, and also Steve will scroll for the folks at home. We have some information to share with them. So this is for the period ending February 28th, 2019. We start the month with an opening balance of $4,939,000. We had receipts of $2,310,000, disbursements of $1,296,000, for an ending balance of $5,953,283. I also would like to share with you just some quick stats for year ending 2018, if I could. It's broken up by funds. It's in your packets. I'll just give you the very quick highlights. We began 2017 with $917,000 in unappropriated fund balance. We allocated quite a bit of money towards current projects and projects for the near future, and we ended the year with $908,000 still remaining in unappropriated fund balance. We'll refer to that number again later tonight when we talk about how to finance our rec park improvements. B fund, we started the year with an unappropriated beginning fund balance of $743,000. We ended the year with $752,000. We have in our community preservation fund $1,359,000. We know of at least one project that we believe we'll be contributing towards, and that's the acquisition of the parcels adjoining the recreational lands for water protection and also for trail construction. In the DB Highway Fund, we started with a beginning fund balance of $547,000 and concluded with $460,253. We also have some capital accounts which we've allocated money towards, playground culverts, highway equipment, recycling pavement, and rec park. We also have in our SF fund, which is our fire, we have some reserves there as well. And then our lighting is the SL fund. And our water district, we have in 2018, we concluded with a fund balance of $718,000. And when you see these figures, they become important because our first item on the agenda is what to do with investing the monies that are idle, at least temporarily idle, during the course of the year. So another good financial year for the town of Red Hook. Lots of investments, but we are well capitalized for the unexpected. and have plans, obviously, to use at least a portion of those funds towards capital projects. So just a overview of the finances ending in 2018. We have some budget adjustments that Ann Conway, our bookkeeper, has prepared for us. Well, very little in the way of budget adjustments.
Well, there's zero.
Zero,
Well, no, you have them here in this document, Harry. These couple of pages here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very little. We have more interest earned than we budgeted for. We have some money allocated towards Panda additional tapings. That's separate from our contractual agreement where we get one meeting taping included. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the supervisor's report?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Same for budget adjustments, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye, thank you very much. We also have a clerk's report, Sue?
February 1st through February 28th, 2019. Total local shares remitted to supervisor as town revenue, $2,174.42. Amount remitted to New York State for their spade and neuter program, $52. Amount remitted to the New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, they received $45. Amount paid to New York State Environmental Conservation, $58.58, for a total state, county, and local revenue of $2,330. Pursuant to Section 27, Sub 1 of the town law, I hereby certify that the foregoing is a full and true statement of all fees and monies received by me, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook, during the period stated involving connection with my office. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. Is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing scheduled for this evening. We're a couple minutes late. It's to hear comment on an addendum to the 2019-2020 services agreement with the Red Hook Fire Company. A few months ago, there was a mandated cancer coverage afforded to volunteer firefighters. And so we did not have that, the numbers ready at the time for our contract. We now have those numbers, so we are going to take a look at paying for our proportional share of this cancer coverage. It's about $2,000 all told and told. The town share would be approximately $1,500 of that. We generally pay about 3/4 of the support for the fire department. It's all based upon coverage area and number of households. So, that being said, so everybody knows what the public hearing is about. Sue, do we have a notice for the public hearing?
We do. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the town of Red Hook on March 12, 2019 at 7:35 p.m. local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, to hear all interested persons regarding a proposed addendum to Fire Protection District Fire Service Agreement between the town of Red Hook and the Village of Red Hook and the Red Hook Fire Company for 2019 and 2020. The proposed addendum to the agreement will include 75% of the additional cost of the New York State cancer benefit coverage, with an estimated increase of $1,541.25. The costs of the fire service agreement are assessed against the existing Red Hook Fire Protection District, embracing the territory outside of the Village of Red Hook. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard in person or by directing comments in writing to the town board, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disability. In In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or by phone 845-758-4606 so that arrangements could be made. Please take further notice that copies of said proposed agreement are available for review at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated February 27, 2019, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook. And as always, that was published in the Poughkeepsie Journal. It was sent to the two villages, posted here, and posted on our town website.
Very good. Okay, at this time I'd open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak about the addendum to the Red Hook Fire Services agreement with the town? Okay, not everybody at once. All right, very good. Since obviously this is something that I assume everybody would support, it's for our volunteer firefighters. It's the least that we can do for them. It's no wonder that there is no objection to this. At this time, I would like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving right along. We have a very long agenda, so we'll see how quickly we can get through things. We've got our public hearing. We do have just a few announcements I'd like to make. Just a reminder to folks who live in the villages, Red Hook and Tivoli, that next Tuesday you have your village elections. They're from 12 o'clock noon to 9 p.m. That's March 18th. And I believe that the elections take place in Red Hook Village Hall. But in Tivoli, I believe they take place in the firehouse. Is that right, Sue? In the firehouse perhaps?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If not, turn
elevator
turn
has
around
been
and look
fixed.
to Village Hall, because that's where it would be if it's not in the firehouse. So that's Tuesday, March 18th. We want to start to let you know, if we haven't already,
Tuesday
that...
is the 19th, Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, the 19th, Tuesday. Well, everybody knows that elections happen on Tuesdays unless there's something special, right? Tuesday the 19th, thank you for correcting me. We have our new playground going in, well, at least we assume. We have our bond resolution to appropriate the funds for that and for other things tonight. We have a community build. We are expecting to take place 2 weekends, but primarily the first weekend is Friday, May 3rd through Sunday, May 5th, and also what remains on the 10th and 11th in May. We're looking for volunteers. If you're skilled, terrific, but that's not necessary. And you can sign up. I think is Red Hook Plays organizing that sign up, Sarah? Okay.
RedHookPlays.com and they have or .org. I don't know. Is it .org? Thank you.
.org.
It's .org.
Okay.
RedHookPlays.org, and right at the top it says like volunteer to build or something like that. It's like a big blue button. You click that and it's just got a little, you just toggle which boxes you can do, but they really need to know who's showing up what days so that they know how aggressively to drag more public members off the street. So please sign up so that we know to count on you.
Okay. The other announcement I'd like to make is that the Empire State Trail, as you know, is going to be coming up River Road. It's our local portion of a 750-mile trail. That's the initiative of the governor from, I believe, 2 years ago. And so they have been looking, they being the Empire State Trail group with New York State and New York State DOT and Dutchess County Department of Public Works, it's a county road, have been looking at how to accommodate bikers and perhaps hopefully even pedestrians on River Road. And so they are working towards a draft that they would like to have the public input on. They're expecting the meeting to take place sometime in late March, early April, or mid-April. They're looking for a venue. It might be Bard College, just because that's off of River Road and they have a large space to accommodate folks. I will give you sort of a preview from what I understand, that they'll be during the tangent of River Road from the bridge extension all the way on up through Bard. There will be speed humps, not bumps, but humps, 12 to 14 feet in length, gradual rise, to help slow down drivers during the course of that tangent, as well as 1 or 2 medians. There'll also be what they refer to as choke areas, 1 or 2 of those, where if you've taken one of those bridges where they sort of, it almost feels like it's 1 lane, but it's not quite. There may be 1 or 2 of those as well. The idea behind that is that these traffic calming measures will make it possible for bikers to be on River Road and coexisting, and also for a lower speed limit. As you know, we were successful in lowering the speed limit, excuse me, from 40 to 35. We have a resolution this evening to actually lower it even further, from 35 to 30. We understand that New York State is willing to, along with these traffic calming measures, to lower to 30 miles per hour. So that's a very long-winded way of my saying to you, check with our website. This public meeting for your input will take place in the next 3 to 5 weeks. Okay? And that is the last announcement I have. Does anybody else have an announcement?
We could just tell people to look out for more information about something called Project Drawdown, which is it's just another one of those sort of contests that the Conservation Advisory Council has done townwide to help us really think about how to reduce our carbon footprints, each of us. And so there's sort of like teams that you can sign up for, and then we sort of enter what we're doing and like compete against each other to see like who can reduce their carbon footprint. So it sounds pretty fun, and I think they're trying to get BARD and the school district and everybody to join. So it should be really interesting. So if you hear those words drawdown, it sounds kind of strange, or it's a word I'm not familiar with in this context. But anyway, it's to do with the environment, and it's a special contest we're doing townwide. So we'll be posting more on the website about that soon, but I just want people to start hearing that word.
Okay. Very good. At this time, we'll take public comments. Would somebody like to make some public comments? Linda.
Linda Keelan, Lane, Red Hook. I reviewed the Panda meetings, and as you notice, I'm back. And in regards to the Red Hook Community Center, I'm a member, my husband's a member. We're all for it. The expenditure, great. However, you said, Robert, that the building was handicap accessible. It's not. I did an informal review of the access. There's lack of signage. It needs one more bar for the other side where you enter. And generally it needs signage, and the parking has to be redone. So, as you know, we've always had a lot of issues about the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I've been in the forefront, especially with the town hall. It took 26 years, but it's finally got done. Then I had to talk about Poets Walk, Dunkin' Donuts, the firehouse during election time, Mill Road outdoor stage, and over the years, the rec park. Recently, I had to give the planning board several pages of information on the law for the Schaefer Motel, which was ignored, and Papa's Barbecue, which did not have an accessible route to the bathroom. And the Gregg renovations have not been looked at. What I am suggesting is that because we've had these problems over so many years, that you have a ADA committee established. I know that there are some people from various groups that live in the area that either they are disabled and are knowledgeable, or they participate in some group. But we need to do this because we're getting the supervisors saying something is accessible when it's not. So in order to protect yourself from any lawsuits from the U.S. Department of Justice, it's a civil action, and this would be a way of protecting you, that the planning board would look at it and get reviews from this committee to know that they have to put these requirements in. I'm getting tired of coming to each meeting and doing it all the time. We need to formalize this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for your suggestion, Linda, and just for folks to be clear, the Red Hook Community Center is not a town-owned property. Amongst many things that go on at the community center is the Friendship Center, which is organized by, I think it's Office of the Aging, the county, and they run programs through there. And they did have their folks go out there and give them recommendations. In fact, I think they did not transfer the Friendship Center over there until those modifications were made to make the building more accessible. But any
More
suggestions, yeah, any suggestions you have, certainly I'd be happy to pass on to the county and also to the
Actually, I'd
folks
like
at
to
the
meet with their
community
board
center.
and let
Yeah.
them be aware of
Yeah.
it.
Good, very good, okay. Anybody else like to make some public comments? No public comments? Okay, very good. We are going to jump right into agenda item number 1. You have your materials there. What we have for agenda item number 1, and I think I referred to it earlier, is for the town to join what's called New York Class. We do a lot of things here with your money in a pooled fashion in order to do it efficiently and to save dollars. So one of the things we'd like to do is join this cooperative called New York Class that there are hundreds of municipalities across New York State that are members, and it has 2 things that we're looking for our idle money in between the months when we are flush and when we expend it after we've received your tax receipts. So New York Class gives us the liquidity of a money market with very close to CD rates historically, and so what we'd like to do is join this cooperative and to amend our investment policy so that can transpire. And you're going to see tonight in some budget materials the kind of difference that we might see on returns. Of course, there are no guarantees in life when it comes to returns, but these are very safe instruments. New York State regulates what we can do with your money while we have it. We can't, for instance, put it into commercial paper, commercial debt. So it's relatively very secure. So we want you to know that, and you have the information. You've had this information for a while now. Does anybody have any questions about it? I can show the folks at home if the computer cooperates. Just sort of historically, we've been getting fairly low interest rates with our lenders, our banks, and you can see sort of the history here with all the municipalities that have joined in New York Class. It didn't much matter until about a year ago. As you know, interest rates have been raised several times, so everybody was getting relatively low rates, but now we have the potential to more than double the interest rate that we've been receiving. And this is short-term money, so we can notify them by 12 o'clock that we want our money back and get it that same day. So it's very different than putting your money in a CD for a locked up period of time.
You do the policy first.
Yeah. So we do have a motion to amend the policy to allow for this. And that's resolution number 17. Lucky number 17 for March. It's a resolution approving the amendment to the Town of Red Hook investment policy to accommodate New York Class, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Resolution 18 is approving the municipal cooperation agreement, which has been in place for all municipalities, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Was that an aye, Harry?
Which one are you talking
The
about?
second resolution, we did a
You're
resolution.
trying to rush on, but usually you have the motion and then you say any discussion.
Oh, I didn't, I
So
read
maybe
it.
you could
I'm
just
sorry,
give us
any
a second.
discussion, yeah,
Are
sorry.
you talking about the resolution that would authorize us to borrow $9 million?
No, I'm talking about we're not borrowing, Harry, this is for us to invest. That is our investment policy, as a limitation of investing to a maximum of $9 million.
Well, that means we have 9 million.
You can see here, like in our policy, like we couldn't put more than $9 million in a key bank or anywhere if we had it.
We shouldn't have it
Well, yeah, that's what they did. We
in
shouldn't get rid of it.
in a municipality.
Okay. I'm sorry, any further discussion?
I'm
All-
good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Okay. We're talking about Rec Park. As you know, we were awarded several grants related to the work at Rec Park, one of those grants being to make our restrooms ADA accessible, because they are not. And I want to commend once again John Kuhn and his staff, because they are in the restrooms as we speak, working on other aspects. Our restrooms are in dire need, along with other elements of the Rec Park, of refresh. Is that a kind word to use? Okay. So this is just a resolution to accept the agreement that comes from the county. It's the standard grant that we get from them annually. It's resolution number 20.
19.
Oh. Okay, I thought we did 19 with the other New York class, sorry. All right. 19 dated March 12th, authorizing the execution of grant contract between the town of Red Hook and Dutchess County for the Rec Park bathroom accessibility improvements. It's for $50,000 and I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just out of curiosity, this doesn't have anything to do with this, but just while we're on the topic of these bathrooms, are we gonna get to see what the plans are? Is John already like looking at those, or is there just a way that this is gonna get done? We don't have it, like a say about it.
That's part of the work that Brandy is going to be doing
Okay.
and company is going to be doing for
Okay.
us. Yeah. Okay, and the county has walked through with us
Yeah.
and it gave us all the advice on accessibility, and we're gonna be actually changing some of the concrete around the snack bar so that there's no lips and no impediments around there, so that people can move freely and safely in wheelchairs and everything else. Yeah. Okay, very good. So we had a motion
And a second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Another very quick thing, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm rushing. We have resolution number 20. We talked about this at our last meeting. We just need to let Dutchess County know that we don't have a private drive name of Greenhouse Lane. Kenny Miglarelli was in front of us at the last meeting. I provided you with the map. It's a private driveway here off of Freeborn Lane. And that's his farm labor housing there. And for 911 purposes, they need to see, need to have addresses. And so he's requesting for the private drive that it be called Greenhouse Lane. Are there any questions before we go ahead and let Dutchess County know that we don't have a conflict with that name? Okay.
I'm in favor of people correctly naming their 911 properties and places.
Correctly, yes. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because soon I hope to be talking to you about 911 signage, because we still have not solved that issue, making sure that we have proper 911 signage. I know the Disaster Preparedness Committee is trying to tackle that, and so whatever we can do to help would be great. Okay, so I don't think we do have a formal resolution. 20, accepting Greenhouse Lane as a farm driveway, and I so move.
Second?
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our attorney made some changes based upon your input on the Red Hook Community Center agreement. I did not see any comments. Hopefully that means you're good with the changes. They reflected your thoughts. And we want to thank all the volunteers at the Red Hook Community Center. Like local government, it really doesn't operate without all of that volunteer help. All right, it's resolution number 21 dated March 12, 2019, authorizing the service agreement with the Red Hook Community Center. And I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, another quick, hopefully, resolution, and that's to amend the speed limit. I think you've heard me and the rationale. This is something that the state, ironically, even though they make the determination of lowering the speed limit, that they require from us a resolution requesting it. We made a resolution not that long ago to lower it to 30. They lowered it to 35, and they're back now in conjunction with this traffic calming measures on Empire State Trail. This is now resolution number 22. Requesting modification of speed limit on County Road 103 from Annandale Road Triangle to the town line. It is already lower than 30 miles per hour through the BART campus, where it's 25 actually with all that pedestrian traffic. Okay, the resolution basically reiterates what I've said to you about needing this for Empire State Trail, and I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'll just say I am in favor of anything that makes this road safer. I think it's like one of the gems of our community, but it's also feels so dangerous, especially when you have motorists and cyclists and God forbid also a pedestrian or something. It just feels so, anything we can do to make it safer so people can continue to enjoy it because it is so beautiful, I think is really worth it.
Agreed. Okay.
And just to clarify that it does say that this is from the triangle near Bard College south to the town line.
Oh, would you like the word south just in case?
No, it's in there.
It says that.
Oh, it does say that, yeah. Okay, wasn't in the headline. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to talk about those rec park facilities. If you've been following along for the longest time, there was an adopted master plan back in 2013. We received a grant to amend one of the fields so that it could be ADA accessible. And we had several public workshops and public hearings to take input, even though it was at the last minute of doing design work for the project. And I think that those public hearings have, served us well. You're going to see a comparison of what the adopted plan back in 2013 looked like and what we're looking at tonight. Back late last year, at the conclusion of much of this discussion, the town board decided to move forward with a plan that would create a new ball field challenger, meaning multi-use artificial surface could be used by all individuals on the west side of Linden Avenue. And we did so because we became convinced that we needed additional sports fields. And so after we had that bond resolution in December and in January, we got some more input from our engineers who said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could somehow marry the multi-use artificial surface with the lights, which we knew already we had discussed in the workshops and so on and so forth. Would the board consider possibly swapping the fields and putting the artificial surface on the east side and then making the ball field on the west side a natural turf field, at which point I asked them to do a little work and, you know, show the board, present to the board what it might look like and certainly what that might cost, and see if there was interest in that. And so we had that presentation at the last meeting, but we do have our engineers with us again tonight, and maybe we could just do a sort of a quick summary of that, if we could, as soon as I find that.
It's at the top, maybe. The blue one?
There we go. Okay.
So,
Thanks,
good
Brandon.
evening. For the record, I'm Brandy Nelson with Ty and Bond Engineering. As Supervisor just outlined, last meeting, we came and just provided an update as to where we were progress-wise with the rec park. And again, as supervisors mentioned, the project has been in evolution over the last year or so, and I think there's a number of things that have brought that to bear. It started with the town acquiring the land on the west side of Linden Avenue for recreational field expansion, some master planning efforts that were undertaken in the mid 2000s, and then there were some grant opportunities, and then while we were going through a public process on some improvements on Rec Park West, the town was also pursuing efforts to make some ADA improvements on Rec Park East, and so in consideration of the town's success, getting those improvements, moving forward with the playground upgrade, last meeting we came back and we presented some information suggesting that maybe it's appropriate to consolidate the ADA improvements on Rec Park East as part of the overall comprehensive Rec Park facilities upgrades for the entire park, not just one side or the other. So real briefly, on the screen you see on the left side an aerial view of what's currently there, and on the right side an aerial view of what the full build out of the rec facility could be with the comprehensive plan. A little bit off screen on the far right side you can see the improvements to Rec Park East, including the playground area, the ADA improvements that will be grant funded at the existing concession and restroom building, the Challenger field on Rec Park East. Again, that's lighting that field is actually lit now, and the Rec Commission's been planning on upgrading the lights there because they're inadequate for play. So marrying up the Challenger field with the lighting improvements would really expand the opportunity to play on that synthetic turf field. And then tennis court improvements happened last year, and there's basketball court improvements proposed. And the supervisor mentioned that there was some interest in pickleball. And I believe that Mr. Kuhn has been working on pickleball down at the south, there Robert's identifying where the area is. Was it a roller hockey court, John? Okay, yeah, that could be repurposed as pickleball facilities. So I don't have any other information on pickleball other than that area has been busy. I've played it a couple of times, but so if you don't mind, go to the next slide. I'll just quickly.
And I just want to point out that there was a request to show the fields there. I think initially we had the blob sort of on the southwest there.
Yeah, last time I was
because that was the conclusion of phase one, but ultimately it could look something like that with those fields.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want anybody to get hung up necessarily. The intent is to have a level, flexible play space, but much like when people with gravel parking lots get asked to show how many cars could fit there, we have delineated it to show that the area is big enough to accommodate several rectangular fields so they could be lined if you wanted them to be, but they don't have to be. So chalk is, it can be mowed away.
What's the total dimension of that?
It's
660 by 360.
Okay, so you'd have a 360 long field and 220
I
wide.
wouldn't hold us to the 360 length field,
Yeah.
particularly because that's for football and there's not goalposts to play football down there. When we get grading the site out and we have excess material left over, we'll pick a size field that I think's appropriate for the rec commission and the high school, but the standard size field would be 220 by 360.
So you're really going to level that dependent upon the amount of soils that need to be moved and what could go move in there to make it level.
Correct.
Okay. Ready to move down? Okay.
So we'll give it just a second for the digital screen to catch up with it and make it a little crisper. But so the image currently on the screen was the 2013 master plan that had been undertaken, and so in that instance you can see to the south of the parcel there was the intent to provide for 4 rectangular fields, 2 diamond fields, pavilion facility, and a parking area that sort of wrapped around the northeast corner of the parcel. And then if we scroll to the next.
Sure. Can we point out that parcel that we purchased? If folks want to see, this was on the adopted plan back in 2013. This thing that looks like my intestine is the parking design. And so the town of Red Hook, using community preservation funds, acquired this parcel here, if you can see where my squiggly is, just to the north, to provide the opportunity for better and safer parking design, and also to create additional buffer between the residential neighbors.
So that was an addition of just over 1 acre to the rec park. And then after about February, March of last year, that concept plan had never been worked through a grading exercise by the previous consultant, and so we took a closer look at exactly what would fit on the property given the topography that's out there, and came back to the board with this configuration that provided for let's call it 3 large fields and a small field, like a junior size field, along with a multi-purpose challenger field to the north of the rectangular fields, and then a parking area to accommodate full use of all the areas, along with accessory facilities, restroom facilities, pavilion, and the related infrastructure. From that presentation, there was a request to reach out to the community a little more broadly. The town board had a public meeting in May, and then between the town board and some special meetings as well as some rec commission meetings, we had 3 additional meetings. We got some feedback about recreational field needs and undertook a needs assessment in August. And then we presented that information at 2 meetings in September and October of last year. At that point, what we did was try to take a look at the input from all those public meetings, put that down on paper, and dovetail in, as I just mentioned, some of the information that we learned about grant opportunities that the town had been successful with, and try and look comprehensively at the whole rec park to see how the different goals and objectives could be met and grant funds could be leveraged. So we talked about, if you don't mind scrolling to the next sheet, we talked about in the late fall when we had our October meeting, and we're going to let the digital technology catch up to us because it's a little blurry, but the town had heard that there was going to be a grant award related to trailhead for the V2V trail. And so we had added that to the master plan. And then we had had some feedback about providing some additional buffers to neighbors to the north. So there's, as you can see in that plan, no second ball field to the north. And then there's parking has all been pulled back closer towards the diamond field. So, this was just discussed as an outcome of the public process. And then where we are today is represented on the next slide. No, this is just information about where we are today. So, in consideration of the input, the grant opportunities, and realization that there are a lot of ADA improvements being proposed for Rec Park East, as well as to leverage some improvements proposed in the middle softball field to replace the lights. The summary that we put together here is that there are trailhead improvements for the V2V trail. There's the full build on the playground. There is a plan to upgrade ADA amenities at the existing recreation park facilities. There's already a plan in place to replace some of the inadequate field lighting. And we really see the opportunity to get the most use out of the synthetic turf challenger field by providing lights on it, so that the town can absolutely squeeze as much opportunity out of that field as possible. So with the focus of ADA improvements on Rec Park East, as we mentioned at the last meeting, it seemed appropriate that the challenger field also be on Rec Park East. With Rec Park West, still consistent with the master plan, we would, and the needs assessment, we would still suggest that those rectangular fields and a Little League diamond field, which the town is short on, would be appropriate there, along with the trailhead improvements that are proposed for connecting to the V2V trail. Any parking or other facilities that would get built there could support a whole host of uses then, walking, trail use, relaxation, or more active pursuits like Frisbee in the rectangular field area, or scheduled sports like Little League Baseball. So I believe the last slide then is similar to the cover slide. And it shows our recommendation for current revision of the master plan. That incorporates all the items that I just mentioned. It looks comprehensively at both sides of the park. It provides deep buffers to the neighborhoods north of the park on Rec Park West. It provides a flexible space for field play at the south. That is created when we install the baseball field. We talked last time about how there's some grading to get that baseball field in that'll create some fill that can be managed then on site to create the rectangular fields. And then on Rec Park East, as I mentioned, the red blob there is the proposed rebuild for the playground area, and then existing pavilion, restroom, concessions facilities. We propose some pathways just to make sure everything's interconnected so that there's no barriers for moving between the facilities, and then the challenger field with the lighting upgrades and the basketball court improvements. So.
Did you mention fencing?
I have not mentioned fencing, but I do believe as far as, I'm not sure if it's associated with the playground,
Yeah.
but there's some proposals to try and do a little better job with the parking on Rec Park East, also provide a little bit more parking and reallocate the fence location a little bit.
Right, and also make it more ADA accessible for folks to get in and out of this playground that they can now use. Yeah. Okay. So that's all the good news. And here's the trickier part, which is how to pay for that perhaps better design for the next 30 years. And
Right. So at the last meeting, we had this broken out into to 4 phases over the next, let's say 30 months or so. And the feedback that we got from the board was that we might want to look at putting the natural turf diamond field earlier into the phasing of the project because that field takes 3 seasons to grow in and be playable. So we could put the field in and then wait to put in the parking facilities because you've got time where that field is growing in and there's no need for parking because nobody's going to be playing on the field. So what we did, the difference between the costs we looked at the last meeting and this is just the shuffling and phasing. So really we have a phase 1A and a phase 1B for spring and fall of this year with phase 1A. I'm sorry that's not loading, it's not very crisp, but phase 1A for spring of this year would be the trailhead improvements and a very small amount of parking on Rec Park West, upgrades to the existing concession and restroom building, and removal of barriers on Rec Park East, and the playground renovation. And then fall of 2019 would be synthetic turf field renovation of the middle softball field on Rec Park East. Concurrent with that would be the lighting upgrade. Those two things are interlinked together. And then installation of the natural turf baseball field on Rec Park West, and the basketball court rehabilitation, which makes sense to put in when we do the synthetic turf field because you'll have a paving contractor on site when you do the synthetic field. And for them to go over and just pave the basketball courts would make a lot of economic sense. They would already be mobilized to the site, so we think you could get your best pricing on that court upgrade at that point in time. And then in spring 2020, we talked last time about how Office Park suggested that we retool our CFA grant through Parks for new park facilities and focus on trailhead facilities and infrastructure. Linking the B2B trail to the Empire Trail is an important thing, but go back and seek additional funding for facilities like restrooms and the related infrastructure for 2020.
Okay, well, I'm happy to pick up where you left off, which is dollars, and they're eye-opening dollars. Nothing is cheap, and certainly revamping and redoing your practically entire rec park and then, creating additional fields and trailhead parking and trails. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of grants. We have the ability to use some of our employees here for a portion of the work. And I just lost connection just at the wrong time. Let's see if we can get that back on. So, the project,
And with the tourism,
that's a nice one, right? Brandy is willing to throw this in for free, okay?
I like it.
It's beautiful, of course. Probably Bill Gates owns it or something, yeah, okay.
Hard to play baseball on.
Right, exactly.
Right,
But they're stair running instead, so.
Okay, so what we have is a project, phase 1 of which would have a total probable cost of somewhere in the neighborhood of, and I chose slightly under the highest estimate of $2.425 million for all that work. When you take away the grants and you get to about $1.5 million, and we've already approved $1.2 million, so we're looking at an extra $300,000 that we would need to amend our bond resolution in order to do phase 1. Phase 2 is approximately $1 million. We're hoping to get to have it would be phase 2 where we could have some site work done. I understand the Commission has spoken to our highway department and provided it fits in, with the schedule. We might have the opportunity to have some savings there. But primarily we're looking at that $500,000 grant that we've been encouraged to reapply for, and some some additional bonding, so another 400,000. So I wanted to just sort of go over the numbers, and obviously for our taxpayers, we want to let them know what if any implications it will mean to them and what it will mean to those fund balances that we have. Well, that's not good. Alright, technical difficulty. Can't connect to Wi-Fi. Well, that's not good.
Does the wire help you if I grab?
Could you, thank you. Technology is great when it works.
I thought there was 300,000.
When it doesn't.
I thought there was 35.
30,000 playground. Fundraiser.
Did you get the playground grant? That's in donations.
So, but we never got any grants.
But now that's where the funds. The highway department.
Okay.
So 250 doesn't do
Yeah.
We may have to take a momentary break to get technology back up.
All right.
There you go.
Let's see. Okay. Let's try this again.
Just like my computer.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, does it? Well, I'm gonna have to speak to it unfortunately, some of which you have in your
Shut
folders.
it down and turn it back. Shut your system off and turn it back on.
It's the Wi-Fi that's not reading
No,
unfortunately.
it's your computer.
I think it's my computer, okay. Steve, could we take just a 2-minute break, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. See if we can get this up and running. We're back up. Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, so we're talking about funding sources for Phase 1. A total cost of $2.425 million. What we have in front of us is to increase the bonding approval from 1.2 to 1.5. We've already appropriated $430,000 towards these rec park projects. We have available funds in the 2019 budget, if you recall. These projects were to occur in 2018, which means we had principal and interest payments due in 2019 budgeted. Those payments were $120,500. So those are available funds that can move forward to to reduce the bonding amount that we need. We also have, as you saw in that diagram, grants and/or donations from many of the folks that contributed towards the playground project of $375,000. That brings us to a total cost of $2,425,000. So that's on the high end of the estimate. I will also point out that the estimate had contingency of 15 to 20% built in. So I'm not suggesting it's going to cost a lot less, but maybe we'll get lucky and it'll come in under budget. On Phase 2, $1,008,000, of which we might consider next year bonding an additional $400,000 if we get the $500,000 grant. If we can have the services of our employees to do some of the site work, terrific, that also helps out. That might save as much as $100,000. If not, then we would either look to get additional grants from the county perhaps, and or add that to the bonding amount. So How we might proceed is $1.5 million bonding, an additional $300,000 now, and we need to do it now, by the way, because we need to pay for our playground equipment, which is in storage. And we need to get going because we're running out of time to do the construction work, which will begin, we hope, at the beginning of September or at the end of August. So those are the phases. So what I was going to show you on the screen, and unfortunately I don't have the screen to show you, but I've been working with our bookkeeper and Conway, and so I wanted to give you some idea of what the implications of increasing that bonding would be for the 2020 budget. I already have an early 2020 budget and an early 2021 budget, and I have factored in both the bonding of $1.5 million in 2019 and an additional $400,000 in 2020. I've made a lot of the usual assumptions, salary increases and so on and so forth. The only two other assumptions I would let you know is increased revenue assumptions based upon mortgage tax receipts. It's expected that we should experience a slight increase in mortgage tax receipts because we do have a very large development that is underway. And so I have an increase of $20,000 projected for 2020 and then another $10,000 for 2021. The other increase that I have projected for budgeting is for our tax roll. I want to tell you very good news that over the last several years our tax roll has grown from $1,158 million. That's the taxable property within the township, both villages. And this year, although it's not finalized, the numbers, this year we are already at $1,182,000. We have grown better than $25 million over the last few years. What that means is that when the tax rolls go up, we're able to charge you the same amount of taxes, or we're able to charge a little more in taxes, but not, it doesn't reflect on your bill because the number of businesses and individuals has increased for the value of the properties, and so we're able to keep taxes down. So for 2020, with those assumptions, there is no need to draw at all from our unappropriated reserves of $909,000. If we were to go ahead and borrow another $400,000 in 2021, with current projections, we might need, in order to keep our tax rate the same, to pull $9,000, simply $9,000 from our $900,000 and almost $9,000 unappropriated reserve to balance this. And I worked for a long time with Ann on these two budgets, and I'm sorry I can't project them on the screen for you, but I did want to let you know that that's what the potential implications are. Our tax roll should continue to increase even in the ensuing years as that project gets built out. We've already seen an increase in our tax rolls because there are individual lots now that have been filed, and so those values get added to the books. So that's the implication. I know there was some question of indebtedness.
Do you have these to give us? I know you said they would be in our packets today, but.
No, this was not to be in your packet. The sheet that I gave you was the summary sheet and how it would be financed.
This sheet?
Yeah, that sheet, it was sort of the summary sheet.
On the back of this.
Yeah, and I could project this if I had Wi-Fi, unfortunately, but I don't have Wi-Fi today.
Yeah, that was, okay.
So the amount of indebtedness projected is, will reach a high in 2020 at $5 million, well below our borrowing authority, which is approximately $86 million. And so it's not much higher than we've had historically. Back in 2013 and 14, we were near $4.5 million between our bonds, and we had bands back then, which we've since paid off. The budgets that I refer to in 2021 assume that when we go to market that we'll be able to do it at a 3% interest rate. But to show you how conservative that is, 15-year bonds right now in March with our credit rating, which is AA, and who knows, maybe we'll get lucky with all the good things happening. It's 2.73 for AA, and those rare municipalities that have AAA are able to get 2.53%. What does this mean if you're the average person at home looking back on this? The 2021 early budget, which is used for these purposes, will have a tax rate of 1.056, approximately the same tax rate that we have today. To give you some idea, in 2015, the town tax rate was 1.11. So the tax rate in 2021, with this project completed, with those descriptions, will be approximately 5% less than it was in 2015. So there's no need to raise taxes, certainly from the A fund, with this project being completed in 2020, 2021, and quite frankly, you know, I can't yet see which year it is that we will need to raise taxes. I know it's coming someday, but we've always promised that we won't raise taxes until we need to raise taxes, so.
Robert, you said that would be 5% less than what, than when?
Then in 2015, our tax rate per thousand was 1.109948, so I rounded it to 1.11. Our current tax rate is 1.056. So again, the taxes, if the value of your property remained the same during that period, your town taxes would be approximately 5% less. They are today, by the way, 5% less than what they were in 2015, but they also will be that in 2021 when you compare to 2015. So that's sort of the summation of that. Again, if Wi-Fi comes up, I'll throw the early drafts of the budget up there, but this is from Ann's office. So, thoughts? Okay, I'll start. I think it's very difficult to spend this kind of money. It's very difficult to, again, revise a plan. But I think it's the best plan for our future for 30, 40 years out. It reflects even more of what the public wanted, and I think we can do it and fit it into our finances. So I'm supportive of moving forward with this, and would be, I know that you all have expressed support at last meeting, but any additional thoughts tonight?
I can be a contrarian.
That's not news, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. It seems that what you've outlined financially has a number of maybes. And I know you didn't say maybe, but it sounds like a maybe,
Okay.
and possibilities.
Okay.
And an expenditure of this is, it's well over $3 million. Right now, we owe 4.4 million, if I have the numbers correctly in total. And that's an immense number. And it's also all tied into one aspect of the town. I mean, I think our recreation program is important, but it should not be the driving force for the town. We have a commercial area that we created in 2012. It's been ignored since then. We haven't put any effort into it. It needs a sewer before it can move forward. And it is the economic future of the town to have that built. And you know, I've brought it up many times, and nothing has happened yet. And it's, I think that's a number one on should be a number one on the agenda. And I may have said before, as I mentioned this, an awful lot of the numbers that are on this are fuzzy. And I think I like this design at the same time. But does it have to be all done now? Can it be phased in? Can it be we've been working on 10-year timelines. Can we do part of it now, another part of it in another several years after we've paid off what we built first? And I think we really need to hear from the public about this. I hope they listen to the TV.
Okay. Harry, just a quick correction, our indebtedness at the end of 2018, according to Ann's fund totals, $3.4 million, not $4.5 million, because we did pay off all those bands and we continue to pay down on our debt.
Well, I got the information I got, and when I looked at it, it was 4.4, still owed.
Okay, well, here's the, you're welcome to, this is Ann's chart.
Well,
You're welcome to.
I got it from Ann
Okay.
about a week ago.
All right. So, and just on fuzzy, there's really nothing fuzzy. The 2020 budget is based upon the tax roll of 2019, and while it's not finalized, it's in near final form. So there'll be tweaks to it, obviously, based upon grievance day, but currently the tax roll is at $1,183 million. So it's substantially higher than it was just a few years ago, and we have other opportunities that are not even factored into it. There's a possibility that the UTS property will be on the tax rolls in a couple years, and none of that stuff is being factored in. So I feel quite confident. I know you're always risk averse. You didn't think that we could, keep taxes flat in the first year we did. We're now in our fourth year looking at not raising taxes, and our fund balance has only gone up. The criticism that we've received from the comptroller's offices, we have been too successful at controlling expenses, and we have, high unappropriated fund balances. But I do share your concern as the chief fiscal officer. The last thing I would want to do is put us in a situation where we have to say to the taxpayer, oh, this year we need, a large increase. Again, I don't see us needing to raise taxes for the next few years, so.
We could be hung out to dry if the economy goes the way the projections are. And we had a number of years where we had virtually no building, no expansion in investments in the town, and we had to raise the tax rate because the interest rate kept going up. Not the interest rate, the inflation rate kept going up. So, I think we're at a time in this nation where our economy is very iffy, and we're part of that economy.
Well,
And that, in addition to the other things I said, I would be have a very jaundiced feeling about increasing our indebtedness to the amount we're talking about here.
okay, well, again, the amount we're talking about, Harry, is $4.9 million once we do the 1.5 million, okay? We're at 3.4 now, we would be at 4.9, which is not out of line. Again, our borrowing authority is around $86 million, so we have a tiny fraction of what we are allowed to have. And the comptroller's office has basically said what they think about our financial risk, and it's near zero with the numbers that we have. So I'll leave it at that.
$86 million? That makes no sense.
Well, Harry, that's the number where
Well, that's a fantasy
the bank
number.
says, hey, Harry, go ahead and get a mortgage for $600,000. Obviously, you're not gonna do that,
Yeah.
but that's what they say. It's the upper limit.
That's our
what they
authority.
say.
That's
That's our authority.
That's what you
We
would
would
be
never
I
allowed to
understand
if you
that.
had to.
That's
Okay, so maybe just to come back to the item in front of us tonight, I would just like to say that having been working on and/or following this project since its the beginning, actually, because I was on the planning board at that point when the people who owned the property at that point were doing some subdivisions. I think that it has taken a long time to get to this point. Looking at the proposed resolution for tonight to update, the resolution shows that, in December 2017, apparently the board was, trying to move ahead, had made some decisions about what would happen at that point. And so, and then made some changes at the end of 2018 again. And so here we are now in the beginning of 2019. And if we don't make a decision one way or the other, we'll be back here again in 2020. So nothing essentially has happened with this property in 10 years since the town purchased it. We've already had some discussions here about, we put a few benches in, and our rec staff has been doing a great job at maintaining the property and trying to mow paths and things so that at least there can be some walking. I know I've stated, and I think other people have joined in with me to say that the current parking situation for that property is very unsafe because there are cars parked along Linden Avenue when I go past there, so that people are obvious, I can see them walking on the property. So I, at the very least, want us to move forward so that we can put in a safe and usable parking area and make the property more accessible to more people within our community. Some of the time that we've been spending on this, I definitely think we have come up with a better plan than perhaps that plan 10 years ago where 5 potential fields were crammed on that site in the sort of snake-like parking. It's fantastic that the village-to-village trail is happening now, and we partnered with or supported the grant for Winnicke Land Trust, so now this property is going to be connected to 300 acres of other passive and active recreation space, including trails and connections through that regard. So I think there definitely have been improvements to the plan. Excuse me, but I just don't really want to see this wait another 10 years. That we could, everybody has an opinion on what will be the perfect plan, and I would like to see us get started. I think that with the public input we've had, the rec needs assessment that was done, input from the rec committee and the rec department, we have a lot of information. We've heard a lot about how our current facilities are being used, the amount of use that they're getting, the fact that we need to not only look at upgrading equipment, such as the playground equipment, but expanding capacity, because we just don't have enough facilities and enough time in the day to accommodate all the groups that would like to use our facilities. So definitely I am in favor of the overall project. The fact that the previous boards have passed some bonding authorizations already, so for the phase 1 or 1A and 1B that we're talking about would be an increase of only $300,000 to make that happen. In the scheme of this whole project and how long we've been working on it, seems very reasonable to me. And then to look at the phase 2, which is $1 million, which is nothing, to scoff at. That's a substantial amount of money. But I'm also looking at it as an investment in our community, in our children who live here. Robert and Harry were just commenting about the future of our community and that we need a sewer, and there's a lot of things we need. But the quality of life in Red Hook is what continues to draw people to our community, and we have to keep that high. And good quality, safe, ADA accessible rec facilities, I think, will go a long way towards accomplishing that.
Bill?
Well, I favor being positive and not negative on our expansion of Rec Park west, east, west. I favor being confident in the work done by our committees and our commissions and our planners to do what seems to be the right thing. And I favor, just generally being progressive for the purposes of the town of Red Hook, for the citizens of the town who will benefit from this project. The question I had, of course, was how are we going to pay for it? And I'm satisfied by the reports and the representations by our financial services people that we employ for that purpose. And their numbers seem to be very reasonable, and if we can afford it in a reasonable way, then of course I'm all in favor of it, and I would move the resolution tonight.
Okay, any other thoughts? Sarah, did you want to?
Yeah, I can just say a couple of things. I think I echo a lot of what Christine said, and I think I've said it in other meetings too, just that our rec facilities are a huge part of the quality of life for families in Red Hook. I know, I speak from my own experience, obviously raising kids here, very young kids who will use that facility for a long time, but I think when you are around town, that's what Red Hook is known for, is our school district and for being a great place to raise a family, and I think a lot of these investments are overdue, and I've certainly sat in those seats and watched the town board struggle with, I remember when we went out for a CDBG grant for a water line. Were you the engineer then? It was 2011, something like that, 2012, and we didn't get it, and so we just didn't progress with the park, and it was a water line, which obviously in the scheme of this project feels very small, but I just remember there's been a number of times when it sort of seemed like we were gonna get off the ground and we didn't. And in a way I'm glad, because I do feel like this plan reflects an amount of public input that I hadn't seen happen in the past. I've said before, I think there were things we could have done better with that process, but I still think that this reflects just a really positive long-term vision and a good investment for our community. So I would be in favor of the financial plan that you've laid out here. I do just a couple more comments though, that I think we have talked in the past about the idea of having some kind of community stakeholder group that would maybe work with the rec commission and be a way that we could collect some information from the community from time to time, maybe not something that meets regularly, but maybe it would include a segment of people who would be really focused on ADA, for example, but that it would really bring together a lot of people that maybe we don't normally have in the room, and I just think something like that would help us then as we unfold this, but then as we move forward, it's not like once we do this, we're not gonna have any more improvements, right? Then we're gonna need to do some other things, hopefully smaller things, but we're still gonna need to do more things. So I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to have the rec commission be doing some kind of more formal commenting when we have a big plan like this, because I know you guys have been here in the room, and John has these big rec director's reports, but I think really having your commission's wisdom to put in our packets and show this is what the experts think in our town, who have been appointed to really think about this. This is what they think about this plan. I haven't heard that, and I think it would be really valuable, to have that and have it be part of the record. And then the other two things, just to speak to Harry's statements a little bit, that he's right that if we do borrow this amount of money, that's what we've decided to do. That we've encumbered ourselves to a certain point. It doesn't mean that if we had a great opportunity to do a sewer next that we can't also consider that, because as you said, we may have more room. But it's smart to acknowledge that that's what the board's responsibility is to look at the budget and figure out what we can handle and how far we should raise taxes. And so it is something that the board should be very aware of when we make a big decision about this, that we're making a conscious choice to make this the priority as we are moving forward into the next few years, and considering our indebtedness and how far we want to go with that, how far we might be comfortable raising taxes. And to that end, I just want to reiterate, I know you have said before that you're working on a list of a capital plan for the rec area and probably for town in general.
For everything, multi-year plan, yeah.
It would be great to have something like that to be able to put with a decision like this, so then you could say, here's where we're at in the big picture of where we think we're going in the future financially, what kind of investments we know we're going to need to make. So I hope that we get to see that really soon. So those are my comments.
Okay. Very good. Thank you all very much. for your input and obviously thank the public for their input. I think it's very exciting. That's the good news. The bad news is there's gonna be a lot of disruption in your rec park this summer. So the expression no pain, no gain. You'll have a lot of fun assembling a new playground, so we encourage you to come for those weekends. When we retrofit the middle field and get professional safe lights, there'll be some disruption, obviously, with that as well, the basketball court. But essentially, you'll have almost a brand new recreation park. Again, just to reiterate, without raising your taxes, and it's a real big draw. And just one more time on Harry's thing, nobody has a crystal ball about the national economy. I can just tell you that as far as the functions that we do and the revenue sources that we have, things are going well here in Red Hook, and let's just all hope that with the positive energy, they continue. People love living in Red Hook. They're moving to Red Hook and staying in Red Hook. Let's make sure that it remains affordable also, that people of all economic levels can stay in this wonderful community. So, okay, we have a resolution. We have to first take a look at our seeker, and then we can deal with the bond resolution. And of course, I have my seeker. Resolution to adopt a determination of non-significance. As you know, this is, pretty consistent with what we already had, but slightly different. So whenever we make any changes, we take a look at any potential environmental impact, and we have done so. We have an EAF that's been prepared for us by our engineers and reviewed by our attorneys as well. And so this would be, any questions about this, the Part 1 EAF? Sue, is this resolution 23?
So this,
Okay.
22 or 23?
I thought we did 22 already,
It's
but
23.
it's 23.
No?
22 was
Oh,
the speed limit.
Got it.
22 to speed.
Yeah,
Resolution number 23. It's to adopt a determination of non-significance for the proposed recreation park improvements, and those are the changes.
And if we could just
discuss.
quickly walk through the EAF
Sure,
that's
would
been
you like to
presented
do
by
that?
the engineer.
Fine.
Right,
Do that.
so
Okay.
she's already described, Brandy's already described the project to you, the description of the action. And some of the items to be noted would be that this will ultimately, as the master plan describes, involve a subsurface sewage disposal system because there isn't any sewer system in that area. It's not adjacent to historic structures or archaeologically sensitive areas. We've noted that the phase 1 work will not expand the wetland impacts that were identified in the original master plan. Those of you who were around then might remember that a mitigation plan was developed in connection with the original acquisition and the original master plan, and that work was carried out in accordance with that master plan and completed in, I think, 2015. So no further mitigation work would be needed because that was already completed for the original master plan project, so I just want to call that to your attention. And then the project is, will have stormwater discharge impacts, but they will be designed in accordance with the Speedy's general permit for stormwater. That'll be something that the engineers will be designing in accordance with. They've run the normal mapping requirements to show you the results of that, so you can see the flood map there on the edge. And then you have the existing, what Brandy has presented up here, the existing condition, and then the proposed master plan as it was modified here. So the neg deck proposal makes the determination that this is really a reevaluation of the information that we looked at in the original master plan process, and it really is substantially consistent with that, and less intensive, if anything, in terms of the level of use on that west side. So we have also identified that we're now including the existing facilities upgrades over on the east side, but of course, for the most part, those are rehabilitation and replacement of existing facilities. So for those reasons, the resolution identifies a negative declaration as being appropriate in this case.
Okay.
So move the resolution.
Number 23, is there a second?
Second?
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, Harry.
Further discussion.
I don't have a problem with this resolution says, but I don't want to, I do not want to imply that I support the financial investment such as it's been described tonight.
So there's two different resolutions. The one we're looking at right now is number
Right,
23,
I
which is the negative.
realize that.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
all right, that sounds like you want to vote. All in favor? Aye, okay. And then we have resolution number 24, which is to modify our bond resolution.
What was the vote on that?
I think it was 5-0 on 23, is
Yes.
that correct? Yeah.
Is that what it was, Sue?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Was the vote 5-0?
On the EAF,
Yeah, everybody voted in
Okay.
favor.
okay? Town of Red Hook Resolution number 24 dated March 12th, which is to amend the bond resolution. Essentially, you've heard us describe it to increase the funding amount of $300,000 to $1.5 million. So what we're looking at now is doing phase 1A and B, as was described to you. And then we'll take up the issue of phase 2 next year when we see what grants we've received and take a look at how we came in under, did I say under? Under the amount for phase 1. I've already set myself up, haven't I?
I move resolution number 20.
24, okay, very good.
Second?
Is there a second? All right. Christine has seconded. Okay, and is there further discussion on resolution number 24? All right. All in favor, roll call please. Christine?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Sarah?
Aye.
Harry?
Nay.
Thank you. The resolution passes. And I want to thank all of you again. Those of you clapping are invited. We're here twice a month. The rest of you, this is our last public meeting. It's been a very long process. I had more here at the beginning of the process. And I just want to thank you all because more voices make a better product. And so I hope that you feel that we've listened to your voices. It's never a perfect process. But when I look back at what transpired in 2013 versus sort of what's transpired over the last few years, I hope you feel that at least we're moving in the right direction. So. Okay, thank you very much. We are moving right along to and thank our Rec Commission and Director over there for all your work. We're moving right on to item number 7, which is an addendum to the 2019-2020 services agreement with the Red Hook Fire Company. You've heard me describe it. Mandatory cancer coverage. I don't know why we didn't do this years ago, not us personally, but why we, the collective New York State, didn't provide this, because we know our firefighters put their health in jeopardy early and often. And so it's resolution number 25, dated March 12th, authorizing. Okay. All in favor?
I'm sorry.
So sorry, second?
I didn't hear second.
Second?
Thank you, Christine seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, thank you very much. This is an opportunity to remind you that this year, both the Red Hook Fire Company and the Tivoli Fire Company are celebrating their 100th anniversary. There will be a celebration this summer. You all are invited to. They would want me to let you know. You'll find out more about it probably in the news and certainly on our town website, especially if you sign up for Notify Me notifications. But we really want to take this opportunity to thank them 100 years of having volunteer companies is pretty amazing. I don't need to tell you what the finances of this town would be were it not for those dedicated individuals getting up in the middle of the night to make sure that we're all safe, so. Okay, did we vote on this?
Yes.
Thank you. You can tell what my attention span is, okay.
Fine to me.
We have a resolution to adopt a 90-day extension. We're getting close to modifying our regulations as it pertains to large-scale commercial extractions in town. And so that would be resolution number 26. And who would like to move this? Natural resources. Okay.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Second by Christine. Is there any discussion about this?
It's pretty cut and dry. We are very close to a draft on our new law, but we want this in place to keep us protected
Protected.
until we're ready.
Well said. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We've got that. Okay, we have a resolution to approve our CCA. We want to continue to let you folks know that the town is joining with other municipalities, as I mentioned earlier tonight. We are doing so with regard to your energy that's provided to you in your houses and your businesses. So we are joining with other municipalities, and we are going to procure 100% renewable energy. If you recall, many years ago, the Public Service Commission separated out your utility as a distributor versus another entity as the supplier of that energy. And so what we are doing is joining with other municipalities and collectively purchasing clean energy that is going to be powering your homes, and you have the option of opting out if you would like to opt out. This will be done only and if it can be provided to you at a discount, probably not a large discount, but a tiny discount to what you're currently paying, and guaranteed not to go above that during the contract period. So once again, joining with other municipalities to purchase things that serve us all, and in particular you as a taxpayer. So we approved the local law at our last meeting. Tonight we are looking at the agreement with the Energy Service Administrator, Jewel Assets, who came maybe 3 months ago and did a presentation about CCA maybe 2 months ago. And so this is the agreement. It's got a bunch of legalese in there, and it is resolution number 27, okay? And let me know if you have any questions before we go ahead and vote on this. All right, if not, who would like to move resolution number 27? It's very exciting. It will lower our footprint significantly.
I just think there's a typo on the.
There's a
should
typo
be-
here?
It just says now, therefore be resolved, it says 122 instead of 123.
Oh,
Thank you.
we can't count. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
More importantly, the computer.
Okay, I'm gonna move this resolution because I think it's a terrific thing to fulfilling the goals of our climate action plan. Number 27, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, any questions, further comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, we are moving right along. We'd like to discuss the mailbox policy. So our highway superintendent has been kind enough to provide us with a sample mailbox policy, and some tweakings of it, and some illustrations of it. And so tonight I thought maybe we could at least talk about it and see if we can't get to some consensus at a very soon meeting to follow. anybody want to talk about what we've been provided? I have a couple of comments, but I
Could
thought,
we, maybe Teresa could just, for
Would
the
you- would
public,
you like
just kind
to-
of explain roughly
Teresa,
what
would
we're-
you like to
what
make
we're
that?
looking at?
So we've been working on this mailbox policy for quite some time. I brought it up in October, talked to the attorney and the highway liaison, Harry Colgan, about it. We wanted to develop specifications for mailbox installation guidelines that will be attached to our driveway permit process. The current illustration is vague and does not outline the height of a post or the distance away from the road edge or proper construction materials. And I provided you with a copy of the written policy that I've worked on with Chris. It's important to have this in place as both a preventative measure for future mailbox installations as well as a tool to use when reinstalling broken mailboxes and addressing safety issues. We have found over the years that most of the mailboxes that are damaged by plows are in the wrong location, are the wrong height, or have posts that are weak and cannot stand the force of snow. The setting of the posts can become a safety hazard if it is done improperly, and we have seen non-conforming posts placed where they can do a lot of damage to anything that may hit it, may it be a plow wing or a vehicle. Residents will not be expected to change existing non-conforming installations unless they are identified as a safety issue or are repeatedly damaged by snow removal operations. Reinstallation can be simplified by having uniform guidelines in place. The United States Postal Service has recommendations, but they lack the distance of the post from the road edge, a critical measurement when plowing is involved. We can post the guidelines online and hand them out with our driveway permits. We feel it's in the best interest of our residents to be proactive in preventing potential damage to their property, as well as improving the safety of the roads. And this policy, we feel, can help accomplish that, along with the illustration, which we feel is pretty clear at this point in time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all your work on it. Does anybody want to chime in with comments? I know I had a couple of things that I wanted to discuss. One is the issue of replacing the mailboxes, so non-conforming, because as I was driving around our township, I realized, wow, we're talking about a lot of boxes that are non-conforming. It's not just the idle few. And I'm fine with going forward with new installations because it's not just about the box, it's about the post and who's going to do it, and a lot of people don't have the equipment to do the post properly, and it could be burdensome. And I'm fine with ones that are potentially hazardous to equipment.
Yeah, that's what this paragraph says.
Right.
Residents would not be expected to change existing non-conforming unless they were repeatedly damaged or were identified as a safety hazard.
So I'm good with that second part, I'm not so good with that first part.
What's the
So that's what
first
I'm saying, which is it's repeatedly damaged, so, because it's hard for, it's hard to understand in each specific situation, is it being repeatedly damaged because it's too close to the road, or is it being repeatedly damaged because it's hard to see? I'm just not comfortable with having a lot of mailboxes that may be non-compliant now, maybe over the years, not during your tenure, Teresa, but previously where roads have been widened, and now all of a sudden we have boxes that were installed sort of in conformity with what you're proposing here, and they're no longer meeting those specifications.
I have no issue with that. It's when people walk into the highway department with a broken mailbox in their hand,
Right.
and they say, you keep hitting this.
Right,
And then I say, well, let's go out and look at the installation.
right.
And if the installation is not proper, then we would be able to follow these guidelines and have that avoided in the future. We're not talking about every mailbox in town. We're talking about future mailboxes. We're talking about mailboxes that we believe are getting damaged, or the people believe are getting damaged because they're in the wrong location. Not because the road was widened, I'm not trying to be a mailbox police for the entire town of Red Hook. That's
Sure.
impossible.
No, I understand. Only good intentions, that's understood. But I see this as being potentially burdensome to homeowners who have a post that is too close to the road now, maybe not their fault, maybe over the time the road expanded.
So what would be the solution in that case?
I'm not sure, but I'd like to give it some thought because I could see that a lot of our residents would be upset if we told them, well, you have to relocate your post and we need you to move it because we're hitting the mailbox.
So
Because
what
it's
would we do besides move the mailbox installation if we were hitting it while we were performing normal plowing operations?
Understood.
What's the alternative?
I don't know what the alternative is, but I do know that if the mailbox is not imposing upon the roadway, that, I could see some of our residents being upset that the mailbox gets hit, and now we tell them not only do they have to replace the mailbox, but they have to move the post in, and that requires some equipment.
Well,
Isn't that, sorry,
nonetheless.
just
Yeah.
Hey, the engineers are here.
Well,
don't most people
John.
have their
They're
mailboxes,
ducking.
I'm sure including mine, technically in the right of way, so like, it's not really there, like, we often will tell residents, like, sorry, we're putting a sidewalk or something here, like, we're not taking your property, this is technically public, right?
Yes.
I mean, so I guess I'm a little confused about the concern, because I think like a lot of us, I'm gonna out myself for sure, mine does not conform, okay? Non-conforming,
Oh.
37 Colonial Drive. I do have 911 stickers on my mailbox, but you have never hit my mailbox. I'm guessing that most people are non-conforming and will never be hit by your plows. And what I read this policy as saying is that I'm good, unless somehow that
Sure.
changes.
And
Or you
that's-
identify it as a safety hazard. And I assume that, actually, my concern was actually with the first part, which is that identifying as a safety hazard felt a little vague to me. And I just wondered, like, how will that happen? Like, will I get a letter in the mail? Like, how will you define safety hazard? I'm not saying you have to define it, I'm just saying, to me, that was the fuzzier part. Where I read this to say repeatedly damaged, at some point, after you've had your mailbox hit 3 or 4 times, aren't you gonna want guidelines that clearly tell you, like, here's where to put your new mailbox?
And with the snow and ice policy, if the town damages your
Right, there's a
mailbox,
process, right?
we
Yeah.
will replace the post and the box. But we would like to place it where it's not going to get damaged again, because that's gonna cost the taxpayers money.
Right, so essentially, I might even get a free mailbox install, or at least help with it from you, which sounds like part of Robert's concern is
Well,
that.
that's in the snow and ice policy.
Yeah.
And
Right.
actually, Robert raised or the town board raised the limit up to $100.
Yeah,
So
I
you could
remember, that was.
install your own mailbox, but what we don't want people to do is have a mailbox that gets hit and then replace it in exactly the same location
Right.
when we know that they can place it somewhere where it won't be damaged again.
Can I ask you, how many times roughly per year do you have like the repeat hitting situation? I'm not saying like a one time, but like.
There are a few mailboxes around town that we have to be extremely careful about.
Okay.
But maybe in a really bad year, we'll do 10 to 15 mailboxes.
Okay.
And then we'll go out and we'll place them, we'll talk to the resident, and we'll say, the reason why this mailbox is getting hit is because it's too close to the road, or now the post is leaning over, so it's not standing straight up like it was when it was originally put in. There are some mailboxes that are like this out into the road. And it's not because where the post is placed, it's because the post has lost its integrity.
Yeah.
So,
Teresa, so does this new guidelines and this illustration also conform with the Postal Service?
Yes.
Regs, okay.
yeah.
And is this, so would this be inferred to be the only installation that you could do?
No. If you look at the specification that we wrote, there is leeway. And it says, mailbox support designs not described in these specifications may be acceptable only if the resident obtains written approval from the town engineer for an alternate design which does not create a hazardous condition. So if they want to put a fancy post or something like that, they can do that. But if it's not going to conform to to regular mailbox standards, then they have to ask for it to be signed off on.
Okay, and who pays the fee for the engineer review?
I haven't gotten that far yet, I've only got this far.
So that would have to be,
Or they could have
Somewhere.
their own engineer do an evaluation, but what we're trying to discourage is when you see people who put cement posts out there that could could damage a vehicle or could damage a plow. People like to be creative, but technically, as Sarah said, these are objects in the right-of-way. And we have the right to just take them out and not talk to them about it. We can say, we're gonna come and take this out of the right-of-way because we feel that it's a safety hazard, according to highway law.
yeah, well, so then I just think we need to probably figure out that aspect of it, because if there's a, if there would be a fee, then we should probably say what that is in here for that review.
And does it have to be the town engineer? Could it be the building department or somebody whose job it is more likely to be driving around town and giving people?
I would maybe want it to be the highway department,
Or
you know,
highway department?
if you're willing. I mean, it just seems to me that, I'm comfortable with you making determinations if a box is hazardous to our equipment or dangerous.
That hasn't really proved to be the point in the past year. I have made determinations and they've been ignored. I don't feel like I am in the department that could identify how deep the post is, or if it's in concrete, or how much force would take
Okay.
something to knock it over.
So
That's
you
why I would defer to an
You
engineer.
feel more comfortable? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
or someone else, because I'm not willing to go out there and argue with people about their non-conforming,
Right.
and then be challenged because I don't have the knowledge.
Right. I'm okay with this. My questions, my biggest questions are pavement creep, which is, I mean, it's happened in lots of municipalities, not just ours. And again, I'm not saying during your tenure, but 10 years from now, if we get more of that going on in our town, we're gonna have the same boxes that were moved over now being asked to be moved over because they're getting hit. And it's a real challenge during these snowstorms for our crew to see even where the road is during those snowstorms. You all know, you see the storms we're having lately. We do hire somebody to be a wingman if we can get them. It's a challenge to get people to wake up in the middle of the night. But it's tough. So if we hit your mailbox, please understand it's not because anybody's not executing perfectly. It's because it's a real challenge just to see sometimes outside of.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding the pavement creep part of it, because since I've been highway superintendent, we've been very vigilant about keeping the road width the way that it is.
Yeah.
And we've actually put something in our highway specifications going forward that the roads would be narrower than the 26 feet they have been in the past. So as far as mailbox placement and road creep, I don't think there's a correlation there, especially
I
for the,
I do, yeah.
well, that's a personal
But not during your
issue.
time, again, not during your time, but, okay,
Creep.
any other comments or thoughts on the?
No.
Can we give some thought to it, and see if we can try to wrap this up for our next meeting?
There'll be public comment at the end, so you should definitely share your thought.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I don't have, it's an impossible situation. You do the best you can.
Yeah, you do your best you can, but we do have to, we haven't had a mailbox policy, and I think it's, we need to develop one. The highway superintendent has asked us to come up with one and provided us information.
On a different subject, I just wanted to mention something when you were talking about the budget. You know that we ordered a dump truck last May.
Yeah.
It has not yet been delivered because production is pushed back now to 18 months. We're hoping to get ours within a year. In 2020, we are looking for a plow truck. If we wait until January of 2020 to order that plow truck, we will go 2 winter seasons without it. So I was hoping that the board could try and consider some way to maybe pre-order it and then have it here on time because you wouldn't be paying for it until you took delivery. I just want to throw that out there because we're going to have an issue. We don't have a spare plow truck. We have our 6 trucks. That truck that we're replacing will be 19 years old in 2020. And if we have to wait till 2021, we might be down another truck, which can affect the level of service when we're plowing. So I just wanted to mention that now because when we were talking to the manufacturer who's giving us our dump truck, he said it's just getting impossible to get them before 18 months. The economy has gotten better, the demand has gotten higher, and the production can't keep up with it. So I don't know where that plow truck is on your 10-year plan, but it was in our capital plan for 2020. And if you know that for a fact, maybe we can do something and be proactive about ordering that.
That's really smart, thanks.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Okay, we are nearing the end, folks. Correspondence, we only have one item of correspondence to share, and that is the comptroller's office has responded that they've received our CAP plan in response to the audit. And so,
We did get another letter about Red Parks.
oh yes, and we got a letter, I thought John was gonna read that letter, but Dave Wright, who heads the over 40 group with 105 strong in our community, writes a letter in support of the current proposal for
The over 40 softball league.
over 40 softball league, yes, as opposed to the just over 40 league. Yes, thank you, I thought that was implied.
Just to clarify.
He would do a good job of representing the over 40 crowd of all types and all interests, so in support of the plan. And certainly for the lights, one of the great things is that we've had, I had just again, over the weekend, correspondence from somebody saying you have to do something about those lights on the middle field, so that's what his letter says. Okay, public comment, we always wrap up with public comment, and Linda always has public comment, so here we go.
You had mentioned the disaster committee as far as signage, and I was wondering, I've mentioned this before to the fire department, do we have a list, a way of identifying those with disabilities within our community so that the fire department knows that that person can't hear, can't see, as a service dog? Do we know that?
So you should get in touch with Hai Ping, who is the chair of the Disaster Preparedness Committee, and I think she can answer that question for you. They're updating the plan now. Teresa's also a part of that group, and may know the answer off the top of her head. But yes, make sure that if we don't, make sure to give that suggestion, because we seem to make provisions for pets, and certainly we want to make provisions for those who need, have special requirements. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Gentleman in the back had a comment about that.
John.
Speaking here, I'm curious about something on the mailbox thing. I have an independent standing newspaper tube. Would those things apply to that as well? Because I've seen some of those get blasted from time to time.
We have in our mailbox specification draft that you can attach the lightweight newspaper box to the post if you'd like. The independent posts, we don't really address those in the mailbox policy because the mailboxes are required for mail delivery. We stick to that. The newspaper boxes may be required for newspaper delivery, but they don't come under the same guidelines when we're doing our driveway specifications, which is what this is going to speak to eventually.
But Teresa, I think it would be fair to say that you wouldn't want one of those posts to be made of a made of something other than wood. You wouldn't want them to be in the highway.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good point.
they shouldn't be, I would think that whatever the post is, whether it's a mailbox or something else, it shouldn't be, obstructing.
Right, and the point about the post for the mailbox illustration, if you were able to see it or read through the actual list of specifications that we're proposing, It should be a 4x4 wooden post buried not more than 2 feet in the ground, or a steel post less than 2 inches, buried not more than 2 feet in the ground, and it cannot be secured by concrete. What you're trying to achieve is that this post can be easily knocked over if a car hits it. So if you have a freestanding post like that and it conforms and it's out of the right of, it's out of it's not right next to the road, it's near where your mailbox is, then that shouldn't be a problem.
Well, I'm fortunate, I don't have a mailbox, but I put it in compared to neighbors' placement of their mailboxes set back from the pavement, and it's got a lightweight piece of fence material, steel.
And does yours get?
I'm not, for full disclosure, I'm not planning on replacing it with a railroad tie. So the other thing is, what you have in the specifications for the mailbox placements and other things, recommendations for reflectorized material, so that to aid the highway crews in spotting those things in the really rotten weather.
Well, that's not something that we would want to include. It's a suggestion,
Right.
I'm sure, and also with the 911 emergency numbering, mailboxes come into play there. But we don't get into the design of the mailbox itself or reflectors. We're just concerned about the safety of the assembly in the right-of-way.
Yeah, well, there's, with new people coming in that aren't familiar with mailboxes and so forth, they might come up from the city or whatever. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And if that's a suggestion and why, for highway crew safety and so forth, just a suggestion.
Sure, take it into consideration, thank you.
Okay. Well, hearing no further business, I want to thank you all for joining us and thank you for participating in your government. I make a motion that we close the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again. Thank you, Steve.